republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This board consists of 7 members and 1 alternate who are appointed by the City Council and serve voluntarily. I am Mary Lau, and I will ask the other members and staff to introduce themselves, beginning on my left.
Mike Flannery.
Andrew Caudell.
Jay Danio, attorney for the board.
Matthew Midge, Assistant City Attorney.
Gina Clayton, Planning and Development.
Samuel Hutkin.
Bruce Rector.
Andy Park.
John Quattrocki.
Please remember to turn off your cell phones so that they do not become a distraction during the meeting. Please also refrain from having conversations in this room so we might hear all the testimony given today. To ensure a complete record of this board's actions, we ask that each individual wishing to speak, including the applicant, speak into the microphone at the podium in front of us, clearly state your name and spell your last name for the clerk. Now I'll ask those in attendance who plan to speak to please rise and be sworn by the clerk.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the entire truth? I do. Yes.
Agendas of today's meeting are on the podium to your left near the entry door. Also on this podium are a roster of the Community Development Board, the list of city staff experts and their resumes, the board's rules of procedures, and the annual schedule of this board. Our first order of business is to review and approve the minutes from last month's meeting. May I have a motion for approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Our next item is anyone from the public that wishes to be heard on a matter that is not on today's agenda. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on something not on today's agenda? Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. I'm Bill Johnson, 2694. I have to turn my sound system off there. It's much easier to hear this way. Bill Johnson, 2694, Redford Court, Clearwater. I've been to several meetings and spoken on several of the occasions. The biggest issue is the comprehensive infill or the residential infill and the criteria for the approval. We say that we really only have 3 levels of standards within the city of Clearwater. The standard, the flexible standard, and then the flexible development. But hidden within the flexible development is that little small print about comprehensive infill redevelopment. And that's the area where there is great flexibility. Even though we say we don't have a variance board, you are really a variance board in allowing that flexibility in those special circumstances that create a problem for a development that just doesn't fit within the standards, but yet there's a piece of property someplace in the city that has those unique characteristics. So, your role in this is to, and I believe it's your highest role, is to make decisions on that infill option. And that infill option is the most important because it needs to be based on the evidence associated with the property. And you have one later in the agenda that I'm not going to speak on, but it is one of those. And Mr. Nurnberger, the planner for this project, has included a great deal of evidence in the staff report talking about the adjoining properties. And to me, this provides you the information to actually make that decision. Is this one of those very few examples or instances where we step outside of all of our boundaries and make an exception? And I think that this staff report is an example of the kind of information that you should be asking for in future applications for infill. I think he did a good job with it. I think you have the information to approve it. I think if I was sitting up there, I would approve it. But you need to ask for that information on future applications. And I appreciate your service to make these important decisions, because you really do have the keys to the future look of Clearwater. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on a matter that is not on today's agenda? All right, we will now move on to our consent agenda. This board has adopted a consent agenda format, and the consent items are identified as such on the agenda. Consent agenda items are those items for which the Planning and Development Department recommends approval, the applicant is in agreement with any proposed conditions, and no written objections to the case have been received to date. Items may be removed from the consent agenda today by a member of the board, a member of the staff, or any person in the audience for questions or objections. I will read the single item we have on the consent agenda, and if any person wishes to remove this item from the consent agenda, please so state or raise your hand and we will remove it. Items removed from the consent agenda will be heard in the regular order of the meeting. Items that remain on the consent agenda will be approved with a single vote. Our item one, our only item on today's consent agenda, case FLD 2022-08021, 802 Jurgens Street. The owner is Hadi Harak, and the location is .069 acre, located on the north side of Jurgens Street, approximately 128 feet east of the intersection of North Myrtle Avenue and Jurgens Street. The board is reviewing a redevelopment of a detached dwelling as a comprehensive infill redevelopment project in the commercial district for the property at 802 Jurgens Street. The project will have a height of approximately 12 feet, provides 2 off-street parking spaces, and requests allowable flexibility regarding the use. Is there any person here who would like to remove this item from today's consent agenda? You want to take this off the consent agenda?
No.
Oh, okay, all right. All right, may I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda for this one item?
I'll do it. I move to approve item number 1, case FLD 2022-08021. Today's consent agenda based on evidence in the record, including the application and the staff report, and hereby adopt the findings of fact and conclusions of law stated in the staff report with conditions of approval as listed.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Right, item 1 is approved. There being no other items on today's agenda, oh, excuse me.
I thought you said, my mistake.
If you please come up to the podium
Yes,
and state your
I
name.
came here to speak concerning that, but I didn't want it removed, but I had a concern, on Harvey Lawrence. Harvey Lawrence, Lawrence,
Thank you.
from the Church of God by Faith, which is at 1007 North Myrtle Avenue. And my concern was, I came here in 1989 to get an approval of variance to build the church, which was slotted to be denied. But then the findings were, when we came to the variance to the city, they gave us an okay September the 29th, 1989. And they told us that based upon this information furnished by the applicant, Mr. Graham moved to grant the variances as requested because the applicant has substantially met all the standards for approval as listed in section 137.012 of the Land Development Code. They arise from a condition which is unique to the property and were not caused by the applicant. The particular shape of the property involved create an unnecessary hardship upon the applicant if a strict interpretation of the code were to be applied. And they are the minimum necessary to overcome the hardship created by the unique shape of the property and the use of the property as a church, subject to the conditions that the Church of God by Faith provide required parking prior to any further development on or around this parcel, and that a building permit be obtained within 6 months from this date. The motion was duly seconded and carried unanimously, and the request was granted. I'm here today because I like growth, but we made an agreement with the city on that date and promised them that we will buy the additional parcels of land for adequate parking. And since then, we've done just that. But now, we're at the point now we're getting ready to build an annex onto that. And I'm concerned about this property because we've been trying to buy all the parcels of land on that side. That way we can have adequate parking. So my problem is that I want to say to the city, I don't want the city of Clearwater to deny me building my annex due to insufficient parking when I've been holding my end and trying to do all I can to make sure we have adequate parking for the things that we want to do. So, and also I want to tell the owner that especially funerals, weddings, revivals, it's cars everywhere. And I don't want him to be frustrated with us. Okay?
Mr. Daniel, any guidance?
The comments don't pertain necessarily to the application that's already been
It's already
decided
approved.
upon, so I don't recommend at this time opening back up for anything.
All right.
I think he's really talking about a future
Thank you,
application.
Mr. Lawrence. Appreciate your comments. All right, there being nothing further on today's agenda, do we have director's items?
I think you need to continue the level 3 case.
All right. Yes, we had originally a level 3 application to approve a number of changes to the city code, and we've received a request to postpone that to the December meeting next month. Can we have a motion to continue that item, that level 1 item?
Move to continue.
Could you please, excuse me for interrupting, continue it to the December 20th specifically?
I move to continue item 1 on the level 3 applications on the agenda today to December 20.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
No director items, no more.
All right. Thank you. In view of that, the meeting is adjourned at